All right, so welcome everyone to our spring 2025 OPT workshop. Like I said, my name is Vivian. I am one of the ISSO advisors. This OPT workshop is a resource for you all so that you know everything you need to know about applying for OPT, the process, what documents you need, what to do when you're waiting approval. So the first half of this workshop is probably the most important right now in present time as you're about to apply. And then the second half of this workshop is about what to do after you've applied and while you're waiting approval. Okay. So, what we'll be going through in this workshop, what is OPT, the pre-application process, the actual I-765 application, and then, like I said, the second half of the workshop is what to do when you're awaiting your approval of your EAD card, what to do when you're on OPT, and just some miscellaneous reminders from the ISSO. So ground rules, like I said, please wait until the end to ask questions. We will have a Q&A time, and I promise you, most of your questions, if not all, will be answered throughout the workshop. So just be patient, and we'll have enough time at the end for you to ask whatever you would like. So, what is OPT? So, I'm sure some of you have an idea of what it is already, but OPT stands for Optional Practical Training. So, what that is it's a 12-month off-campus work authorization that happens after you've completed your degree, and it's basically a continuation of your F1 status. So, a common misconception about OPT is that it's a new visa status, but it is not. It's just a benefit of your F1 status. You still have to follow F1 regulations, but this is just a work authorization for you after you complete your academic degree. So you're still on an F1 visa. And yes, you can renew your F1 visa while on OPT as well. Your work must be in your field of study at your level of study. So, what that means is if you are like a health and wellness major, unfortunately, you can't be trading stocks on Wall Street. There's really no connection that you can make there based on the degree you earned and the work that you would be doing there. So, it just has to be related to your field of study. And unlike my friends that have applied for CPT in the past, a job offer is not necessary to apply for OPT. So this is awesome because you could apply right now and not have a start date until July. So that gives you ample amount of time to look for a job. So no job offer is necessary to apply for OPT. So pre-application process, we'll go over, are you eligible for OPT? When can you apply? Does an OPT start date mean? And if you're a master thesis or PhD student, there's some flexibilities for you all as well. So, are you eligible for OPT? So, you've had to complete at least one academic year in a student status. So, that is a fall and a spring. Summers do not count for OPT eligibility. You have to currently be in valid F1 status. And your full-time OPT cannot begin until you've completed your degree. For my master's thesis and PhD students, you can actually apply for OPT once you've completed all your coursework. So that is a major flexibility for those students. But for the majority of you, you cannot apply for OPT until you're in your final semester, ready to graduate. When to apply for OPT. So, when you apply for OPT, we are going to shorten your I-20 to show May 9th as your graduation date. Okay. So for OPT purposes, May 9th is your graduation date, and that is what your I-20 will show for your program end date. So you can actually apply for OPT up to 90 days before your program end date, which again, in this case is May 9th. So 90 days before that is actually February 8th. So this Saturday is the first day that you can apply for OPT. Now, the ISSO's OPT I-20 request application will open up starting tomorrow, and I will get into the details of that, but you cannot submit your I-20 request for OPT until tomorrow. And you can actually apply up to 60 days after your program end date as well. So in this case, that means July 8th of this year would be the very last day that you could submit your OPT application if you really wanted to, but we do not recommend that at all. But obviously, certain circumstances may come up for students where, they have no choice but to apply that late. USCIS processing time, I'm sure that's a burning question. How long will it take for me to receive my EAD card? I will tell you, last spring and summer semesters, it took 4 months for students to get their EAD cards and get their OPT approval. Last semester, it was about a month or so. I have no idea what it will be for this semester. I really have no idea. So we are just going to say, USCIS processing time is an average of 90 days. Okay. So, OPT start date. So, your OPT start date means this is the day that you are able to start working on your OPT. So, your OPT start date must be 1 to 60 days after graduation. So, like we said, May 9th is your graduation date for OPT purposes. So, the very first date that you could choose to start working is May 10th. And the last date that you could start working is July 7th. Okay. So those are 60 days in between graduation. So as you can see here, we have a riskier start date and a safer start date. So by riskier start date, we don't mean risky as in like you won't get approved. It just means risky as in you may not be approved in time based on when you apply for OPT. So riskier, late May, early June. A safer date is late June to early July. Okay. So it really all depends on when you apply. So, how do you choose your OPT start date? First, do not come to my office and ask me, Vivian, what date should I pick for my OPT start date? I cannot give you an answer. This is a personal decision. It really all depends on each student's circumstances, and each student is different, okay? Don't think that just because your friends are choosing, June 10th as a start date, you absolutely have to choose June 10th as well, because there are a lot of varying factors that come into that decision. So, number one, think of processing times. Like I said, we don't know what it's going to be like this semester, but last spring semester it did take 4 months. Think about, interviewing, and maybe you haven't started the job search yet, so you want more time, or maybe your employer has a very detailed background check that you have to go through, and that takes a while. Think about maybe you want to go home after graduation before you start working and take time to rest. That's not a bad idea. I'll tell you right now, it's not fun in the real world when you're working. So enjoy this time in between while you can. So, like I said, we are not going to make a decision for you. Do not follow what your friends are doing. Think about what you want to do and then choose the start date on your own. So just remember, recap, your start date must be within those 60 days between May 9th and July 8th. Your start date is the date your permission to work begins. So you in no way can start working earlier than your start date, but you can start working later. So let's just say you did pick June 1st as your start date, but your employer doesn't have any onboarding for you until June 10th. That is completely fine. Another major note is that once you choose your OPT start date and we issue your OPT I-20, there is no going back in redoing your start date. We will not redo your I-20, and USCIS, once you've submitted, will absolutely not change your I-20 OPT start date as well. Okay. So that's why it is very important for you to really take the time to consider when you want to start working on OPT. So, just some scenarios for you. So, say if Sam chooses, the very last day that he can for his OPT start date. He's a little worried about finding a job. He wants to, go on vacation between working and graduation, and he just expects USCIS to take, 3 to 4 months to process his EAD. No worries about that. So, what happens to Sam if USCIS actually issues her EAD card like a month before her actual start date? So, her start date will stay the same. And Sam cannot work until she has that EAD card in her hand and the start date has arrived. So, luckily for Sam, she may have gotten a job quicker than she expected, and the employer may want her to start before her start date, but she absolutely cannot. She has to wait until she has that EAD card in her hand and her start date has arrived. Tricky Ricky, this is the other end of the spectrum, okay? Tricky Ricky wants to start working right away after graduation, which, if everything goes perfectly, if he applies, with ample amount of time for processing, then, he's good to go. But what happens to Ricky if USCIS actually issues his EAD card on July 1st? So almost 2 months after his start date. So USCIS usually reflects the EAD card to reflect that delayed issuance date, but not always, okay? Um, so Ricky can't work until he has his EAD card and his start date has passed. So his employer might be put off by the delay and even rescind the offer. But I will tell you, in my experience of working with international students, in my 7 years of doing so, employers are rather flexible. I have never, very rarely seen an employer rescind an offer because your EAD card hasn't been issued yet. So just be transparent with them that um, you're still waiting for your EAD card to come through. Please wait until the end to ask questions. I do not want to have to kick anyone out of this Zoom. Thank you. All right. So, has anyone seen Emperor's New Groove? If not, that's your weekend plans. So here we have Kronk, we have the devil and angel on his shoulder. So the devil's saying, don't you want to start working right away? Like, make your OPT start date the day after graduation. And then you have the angel on his shoulder that is saying, you should play it safe, like maybe choose a later start date with a little bit more cushion. Don't you want to go home for a little bit first and see your family and friends before you start working? So this just gives you, two different perspectives on choosing your OPT start date. Okay, so for my thesis and dissertation students, this only applies to you. You have major flexibility in your OPT start date. So, like I said in the beginning, your OPT is available to you when you complete your coursework. All that we ask is that your defense date should be scheduled within the first 6 months of your proposed OPT start date. Okay. That's just a UNC Charlotte rule. Um, we want you to defend and finish up your degree within the first 6 months of your start date. All on-campus employment, your stipends, any university health insurance ends by your OPT start date, just an FYI, because you're no longer considered a student. And really, it's up to the discretion of the ISSO and your program advisor if we think that, this is a good decision for you to do because there are major time management challenges that you need to think about. It is a full-time job, writing a dissertation and a thesis, and just imagine having another full-time job on top of that. Okay. I have seen students, choose to apply for OPT while they're not done with their dissertation, and it is very difficult for them to sit down and finish it because, they also work a full-time job. You cannot extend your I-20 for more time to complete your thesis or dissertation. Just be aware of that. That's why we have that 6 month rule, because you cannot apply for your STEM extension without a copy of your diploma. Okay. So you won't be conferred a diploma if you haven't defended your dissertation or your thesis. Okay. So for any master's thesis or PhD students, if you're thinking about applying for OPT, definitely come into advising and speak with an advisor so we can just look at the timeline of everything before you make this commitment. Okay. All right. So how can you apply for OPT? So I'm not sure if you're all aware. Hopefully you are, because we only sent like 14 different emails. But the ISSO Connect portal that you're used to is now defunct. Okay, it's in the trash. We are no longer using that. We now have a new portal. It's called the ISSO portal. And that is where you will be requesting your OPT I-20. To request your OPT I-20, you need to know when your start date is going to be, and your advisor, your academic advisor, program coordinator, whoever, someone that knows you and can look in your degree works to confirm that you're graduating. They will also need to send a recommendation through the same ISSO portal application. So a lot of students think that their advisors have to send, a recommendation letter to apply for OPT. That is not the case at all. Your academic advisor is going to receive an email after you put in their information. And all they're going to do is just check like two boxes to say, yes, Vivian is graduating this semester. Yes, I approve her to apply for OPT. And then that is all you need to do. And then just submit that application to us. We have a 5 business day processing time for OPT I-20s. Um, so please, a day after you submit, do not email me asking where your OPT I-20 is. I am the only person that processes these, and we get about 450 to 500 for a typical spring semester. So please be nice to me. Be patient, please. I promise you your OPT I-20 will be issued within those 5 business days. But just, be patient. Once you get your OPT I-20, you'll be able to sign up for what's called an OPT review session. I can't stress how important these OPT review sessions are. We will go through every single question of the online I-765. And this will be your last chance to ask whatever you need to before you submit your OPT application. Okay. It's not mandatory, but highly, highly recommended. Um, Students that get denied for OPT every semester get denied because they think they're too smart to attend the OPT review session. Someone told them that, hey, you don't need to attend that. You can just apply on your own. And then they get denied for OPT. Okay. So, um, do yourselves a favor and just sign up for that review session. It will be super helpful, I promise you. Those review sessions are Wednesdays at 11 a.m. and Fridays at 9 a.m., and they are over Zoom. Those are the days that they typically are, but based on my schedule, we might have to move those around a little bit. But those two are the standard days that we hold our OPT review sessions. So like I said, we will go through everything on the I-765 in that review session. And there is a fee to apply for OPT, okay? It is $470. That is the cost of applying for the I-765, aka your OPT application to USCIS. So just be aware of that. And then you'll submit your application. Okay. You do have to submit it within 30 days of OPT I-20 issuance, but you don't have to think about that now. We'll go over that in the review session. Okay, so now we're in the second half of the workshop. You have successfully applied for OPT. Now, what do you do while you're waiting for your approval? So this is what your EAD card, oops, will look like. Kind of just looks like an ID card or a driver's license. So like we said, your EAD card has to arrive in the mail and your employment start date has to be reached in order for you to be able to start working on OPT. So your EAD card, unfortunately, cannot be forwarded because it is federal mail and they don't allow that. So if you have to move for whatever reason while your OPT is pending, then you'll have to change your address. And we'll talk about that in the review session, okay? The look of the EAD card is changing. It used to look like this, but it now is being issued like this. Both of these cards are still valid. Okay, so no worries about that. If your friend received the new version, but you got the old version, please don't spiral and freak out. They're both valid. Okay. We just don't know when they're like fully phasing out this design. Excuse me. Okay. So managing stress levels, this is my favorite topic to talk about with students who are applying on OPT. Sorry, guys, don't mind my cold. Good ideas to manage stress on OPT. Preparing your resumes and cover letters, using the Career Center on campus to your advantage. They will literally go through every resume of yours, every cover letter. They will do mock interviews with you. They have resources specifically for international students looking for a job. So use them. They are so nice over there. They love working with international students. Um, so definitely take advantage of that. I will tell you the number one complaint I hear from employers is that international students' cover letters are garbage. They're terrible. And why is that? because you have these resources available to you at the Career Center. So please use them. There's no reason why your resumes or cover letters shouldn't be up to par because you have people that are here for you to make sure that you have a great resume and a great cover letter template. Okay. Bad ideas to manage stress, which unfortunately I see more than the good ideas to manage your stress. Checking your case status every day. I promise you, there will be no day-to-day updates about your OPT application. Um, Reading non-credible websites. I love when a student comes into my office and says they saw something on Reddit from 6 years ago that they're getting rid of OPT and deporting international students. Do not listen to those Reddit threads. Do not listen to websites. Do not listen to your friends here, friends that have graduated, friends at other schools. Every student has a different circumstance, okay? So you should only be coming to us for any official information um, regarding your OPT processing, okay? So think about the good ideas to manage stress, not, driving yourselves crazy, which in turn drives me crazy. So while on OPT, things that you need to just be aware about. So there is something called your SCVP portal. So it kind of looks like this. This is where you will be uploading any employment information once you're on OPT. So this is how the government is able to track you, where you're working, where you're living. And it is your responsibility to create this. And you will receive an email from me, a very, very long email after graduation to all OPT students with this information in it as well. So you don't have to, memorize it right now. So in that portal, you have 10 days to submit any changes. So if your office has changed, if your personal address has changed, you are uploading and entering this information in your portal. Okay. Something very important. We are not going to issue you a new I-20 once you're approved for OPT or when you change employers, okay? We are not doing that. It's not mandated by immigration regulations. So just be aware of that. Your OPTI 20 that says requested on it is still good, especially if you have your EAD card. And just an FYI, this SEVP portal is not controlled by the ISSO. It is your responsibility to make sure that everything is accurate and up to date. In unemployment days, I'm sure this is also a burning question. So, you do get 90 days of unemployment time on OPT. So what this is, it's basically like a cushion for you if maybe you are having a hard time finding a job or maybe you're in between jobs. You have these 90 days of unemployment time to fall back on, okay? And these days start ticking the day of your start date if you do not have a job, okay? So that is 90 days within your 12 months. It's not an additional 90 days for your 12 months. It's within the 12 months of OPT. So your employment has to be 20 plus hours per week on OPT. It can be unpaid internships, self-employment. It can be that, but we always recommend reaching out to an immigration attorney if you want to be self-employed. And then obviously paid employment, we want you all to be paid on OPT. You can have more than one employer on OPT. There's no issue with that. And you can change employers while on OPT. So maybe you start a job and it's not a good fit for you. You're not tied down to that job. You can change employers. Employment offer letters. That is also something that comes up in advising a lot. Students think that these offer letters are gold. They're not. They're basically trash. You don't have to upload these in your SCVP portal. Um, Having an offer letter doesn't mean that you're actually working. Let me highlight that point. A lot of students on OPT lately think just because they have an offer letter, but they're not actually doing work on OPT, that that is fine and will stop their unemployment clock. That is untrue. That is fraudulent, and we are seeing a number of these cases popping up. But these OPT employment offer letters are basically only for personal filing purposes and if you travel, okay? If you are unemployed for more than 90 days, that is a violation of your status, okay? This means that you have to make plans to go home because you are in violation of your F1 status if you have more than 90 days of unemployment time. Okay. If you are reaching those 90 days, definitely reach out to the ISSO just to see like what your options are. Maybe you have, another avenue to explore. Traveling on OPT. Yes, you are free to travel on OPT just as you are as an enrolled student. Um, Basically, same documents that you need with you, except this time around you'll have an EAD card. And your I-20 signature is only valid for 6 months. So right now, as an enrolled student, your I-20 signatures are valid for 12 months, but for OPT, they're only valid for 6 months. Um, and like I said, employment offer letter is always good to have when you are re-entering the US. You can all apply for a travel signature on our website. I'm sure you all know that by now. And we have a 5 business day processing time. So it's always good to just give us some time to issue that I-20 for you before you travel. Can you take classes on OPT? The answer is no. Um, You cannot start a part-time degree program on OPT. You cannot start a new higher level program on OPT. If USCIS finds out that you are double dipping, so you're going to school full time and also working on OPT full time, they will terminate your EAD card, okay? OPT is only for working, it is not for studying. Now, if you want to start a new program, that is no problem at all. Just let us know. If you're going to another university, we'll transfer your CVIS record. Or if you want to come back to UNC Charlotte, we'll just issue you a change of level I-20. But just know once we do either of those, um, your OPT authorization has ended and you have to stop working. Any kind of like certifications, this question comes up a lot, is fine to do on OPT, or if your company wants you to do like a Series 7 license exam, like that's completely fine. That's not like real study. It's just no like de actual degree program study. Okay. Paying taxes. It is tax season now. So yes, you will be paying taxes on OPT if you've been in the US longer than 5 years. Um, do not ask us about any tax advice. We are international student advisors. We are not tax professionals. But it's always good to just ask your HR office any questions that you have about your paycheck. And always, always look at your first paycheck just to make sure that all of your information is correct. Because once tax season comes around, and let's just say your name has been spelled wrong on your paycheck, that is a problem, and may interfere with any tax returns that you may qualify for. Okay. So your country may have a tax treaty with the US. You can easily look that up, but definitely make friends with your human resources manager. And like I said, the ISSO is not the people to ask about tax related questions. Okay. Okay, we are near the end. Don't you worry. I hope I'm not boring you all. So, we are near the end of the workshop, and in this situation, we are also near the end of our OPT EAD card. So you do have options, okay? You get a grace period. For 60 days after your EAD card expires to stay in the US. So if you want to do some traveling or whatnot, you can do that. But once you leave the US during those 60-day grace period, you cannot re-enter on your F1 status. I mentioned previously, we're happy to transfer your F1 record to another university if you want to. Every time that you earn a higher degree, you do get 12 more months of OPT. So just keep that in mind. Um, you may apply for a cap gap work authorization if you're eligible for that, but I'm not going to go too into detail about that right now. And then also, if you're eligible for your STEM extension, you would have to apply 90 days before your 12-month EAT card expires, okay? But I am not answering any questions about your STEM extensions because you haven't even applied for OPT yet. So we are like a year and a half into the future about that. Okay, last slide. Luckily for you guys. As you know, the ISSO is here to serve you. We have advising hours twice a week, walk in, twice a week phone advising. So for my pals that are going to move away on OPT, no worries. You can still sign up for a phone advising appointment if you want to um, ask us a question, but you can't come to walk-in advising. OPT reviews twice a week. And then please only email one ISSO staff member about a question. So please don't email both Dylan and I, for example, about the same thing. You may think you'll get a quicker response, but actually you won't because we have to cross-check. Hey, did you respond to this student? Um, so please just only email one ISSO staff member. Okay. Workshop feedback. So, we love getting feedback for our workshops. If you can just scan this QR code and just answer like 3 questions. Did you like this workshop? Did you get anything out of it? Did you like that it was virtual? We're always listening to feedback from students and trying to improve our programs for you all. So, definitely let us know. You can also say that you hated this workshop. That's totally fine too. This is anonymous. You won't hurt my feelings. But yeah, this is there for you. Questions. It is questions time. Oh my goodness, we already have so many. Okay, just to preface this, if you have a super case specific question, please email me, okay? I don't think it's appropriate to have all these students listening to your very specific personal problem. Just email me, and I'm happy to take the time to look at your record and see and give you a good answer, okay? So if you have any case specific questions, please email me or come to advising. Okay, first question. Okay. First question, I have an internship set to start mid-May. Should I apply right now? Then yes, it would be very smart for you to apply earlier rather than later if you have a mid-May start date. Can I accept my job offer if I haven't applied for OPT yet? Yeah, you can do that. Just let them know that you're applying for OPT and this is your start date, and you cannot work until this start date has arrived. If my graduation is in the summer, when is the earliest start date to apply for OPT? Great question. So that would be 90 days before summer term two ends. So that would be in May is when you can start applying for OPT. So you still have some time. Where and when will the recording be published? Sure, I can show you guys that. So if you go to our OPT page on our website, there's a lot of good stuff going on here. The recording will be published right here under OPT application resources. As you can see, the fall recording is right here. So just give me some time to convert it to a YouTube video, and then it will be uploaded there as well as the slides. Let's see. When is the latest date that you can start working? So for my May grads, your latest date is July 8th, I believe. That's what I said. But it's in the presentation. Eric, please email me. If we applied with our OPT start date in late June or whatever, are we still valid to stay in the US after our graduation date in May? Yes. You are in valid status while you have a pending application in the US. Or even if your OPT is approved, but it's not approved until, or your start date's not until like July, yes, you are free to stay in the US and you're in valid status. I've been working as a TA for the last 4 semesters. Can I have OPT? Yes. On-campus employment has no bearing on whether you're eligible for OPT or not. Hi, Vivian. When you mentioned cover letter, did you mean cover letter or resume? And should we upload cover letter for every job, or is a good resume fine? It really all depends on what the employer is asking for in the job posting. Some companies will only want a resume, some will want both a cover letter and a resume. Some will want a writing sample included. It really all depends. Those are great questions to ask the Career Center, though. Could you share the links in chat for the filing and other resources before this call ends, please? And no, I don't know what that means, but no, I'm not going to send anything. Everything that you need to know for OPT will be on the OPT webpage that I just sent or just showed you all. Just to confirm that we will be able to apply for the OPT I-20 tomorrow. Correct. Yes. The OPT application will be open starting tomorrow. Like you mentioned, I need a recommendation from my advisor. How do I get that? Do I need to talk with them about OPT beforehand? So, most of the advisors on campus, especially if you are in a program that, has a large number of international students, they know what OPT is. They know what to expect when you send them this OPT recommendation. So you don't have to talk with them, but if you just want to shoot them an email saying, hey, I'm graduating this semester. I'm an international student. I'm applying for OPT. So you're going to get this request, just an FYI. When can I start applying for OPT the earliest? That was something we went over in this workshop. The earliest that you can apply for OPT is Saturday. That is the first day you can submit it to USCIS. When applying for jobs, a lot of them ask if we will require sponsorship. Does OPT count as sponsorship, even though it's provided through our visa and not an employer? So that's a tricky question. You don't need sponsorship for up to 3 years if you are eligible for your STEM extension. But if they're asking you if at any point in the future you will need sponsorship, the answer is yes. Can you travel abroad after graduation to from the US if you already have your EAD card but your employment start date hasn't begun yet? Yep, there's no issues with that. What if you don't get your EAD card until after July 8th? That really only happens if you wait until like end of June to apply for your OPT. Everyone should be applying earlier rather than later, especially because we have no idea what processing times are going to look like for this semester. When does 90 days deadline start? After OPT start date or after EAD card arrives? So your 90 days start ticking once your start date has arrived. So if your start date has been shifted because USCIS processed your EAD card very late, then they'll alter your start date for that reason, but your 90 days start ticking after your OPT start date. The 90 days of unemployment includes the time we wait for the EAD card as well. No, it does not. Hey, since you said it takes about 3 to 4 months to get the OPT, if we get our OPT in June, how long do we have before we can active our start date? Since when we get it, it's a 90-day period to find a job. So let me explain this. You only, so I think some of you are getting confused. You don't have a 90-day period to find a job. You actually have, if you apply for OPT, say you apply for OPT March 1st and have a start date July 8th, you have all this time to look for a job. If by July 8th you still don't have a job, then yes, you can start using your unemployment time to continue looking for a job. I'm confused about can I start applying for tomorrow and when I can apply on Saturday? So the I-20 request from the ISSO, which you absolutely need to apply for OPT, that opens up tomorrow. But the first day that you can apply for like your I-765 and submit it to USCIS is Saturday. I don't recommend that you apply and submit to USCIS tomorrow because you will be denied. So you can submit the OPT request starting tomorrow. And luckily for for you all, I probably won't process them until Monday. So now you're within those 90 days and it's no problem. Hey, can you explain the cap gap work authorization thing? So cap gap is basically an extension of work authorization if your company applied for an H-1B on your behalf. So let's say that your start date or your end date for your EAD card is like July 8th, but your new H-1B status takes effect October 1st. Cap gap allows you to continue working until October 1st with some kind of authorization. You said earlier that we choose when our start date begins. Yes, you do choose when your start date begins. So, in order to request an I-20 from us, you need to have your start date picked. Um, and those dates are in this presentation as well. If I applied to OPT on March 1st, and then I'm accepted into a PhD program, can I cancel the OPT? Yep, no problem at all. You're just going to lose the money, unfortunately. But yep, students do that a lot where they're admitted into another degree program. So they end up just forfeiting their OPT. Any more questions? Okay, I saw another question come through. If you don't get a job within 90 days of your start date and wish to apply for a higher level of education, what should we do? Can we still reach out to the ISSO to request a new I-20 or not? Yes, depending on your timeline. So your new program has to start within 5 months of um, when you want to transfer to them. This is really in the weeds, though. I'm not going to go through it because it can get rather complicated. So if you are in that position, just reach out to the ISSO. What is a good number of days between the graduation day and OPT start date that we would suggest, that you would suggest? Like I said, every start date is a good start date. Every date between May 10th and July 8th is a good start date. It really all just depends on what you want to do. How long can you be on unpaid internship during OPT? Good question. You can be on an unpaid internship for the entire 12 months of your OPT, but if you are eligible for a STEM extension, your employer absolutely has to be paid. Any more questions? Yes, I just said that OPT can be unpaid. Okay, so I'm getting this question a lot, even though I went over it. We can choose our start date, let's say June 1st, but what happens if we don't get OPT approved by USCIS till 1 or 2 months after a requested start date? Yes, in most cases, USCIS will change your start date to reflect when they actually processed it. Do you mean the employer should pay after 12 months of unpaid internship? What I mean is that if you are applying for your STEM OPT extension, the position that you're doing has to absolutely be paid. After I am done applying for OPT recommended I-20, can I apply for the I-765 on Monday, or do I need to attend the OPT review session first? I highly recommend attending the OPT review session, um, especially because it seems you have a lot of questions, so it may just be good to attend the review session before you submit. Can we travel outside the US while the OPT approval is in process? Um, You can travel while your OPT is pending. We don't recommend it, but if you absolutely have to, yes. But you cannot travel outside the US after May 9th if your OPT is not approved yet and if you don't have your EAD card in your hand. Because after May 9th, you're no longer considered a student. and you absolutely need to have an EAD card with you for reentry. All right, guys, we are almost at 12 o'clock. So thank you all for attending. I hope you all have gotten something out of this. I hope that, your questions were answered. If not, definitely reach out to me via email or come to Walk-in Advising. But you are so welcome. But yeah, I'm sure we will talk soon. And like I said, this will be uploaded on the ISSO's OPT page. Okay. So take care, everyone. And come to coffee hour today between 3 and 5 in Cone After Hours. I will be there. So take care and see you all soon.